Hey, it's Roxanne with Sago Adornment, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about block printing. So I am creating these awesome block printed holiday cards. They are going to be sold to benefit Whiskers. So if you don't know what Whiskers is, it is my sister's animal organization. So she rescues cats, and she has a rescue out of her house actually, and she has a lot of volunteers, and she spends almost all of her time making sure that these cats get taken care of and get vetted. So she also takes on a lot of really difficult cases with cats that maybe don't always have the best prognosis or might be in really difficult situations, and she's amazing. She's able to heal them a lot of the times in situations where they're maybe not given the best odds. So this organization really does work to save lives. So every little bit helps. This year has been really hard on animal rescue. The amount of animals that are out in the population is huge. And the amount of donations that most animal organizations are getting is not anywhere near what they need in order to take care of the animals. So just know that by benefiting this, by participating in this cause, you are making a huge impact. Every pet that she gets will get vetted for medical care, and oftentimes they will get a dental, which dental, if you know, can cost on the low end anywhere between $250 to $500, depending on if there's extractions or not. This makes it so that their future home, they're already going into that home with ideal medical care, that being addressed. A lot of the kitties are seniors, and so that's really helpful too, to give them a long, healthy life. So yes, so these cards are benefiting whiskers.utah.org. If you are interested in finding out more about that, I will post I'll post the link to their Facebook page and their website. You can also check the statistics of how many animals Whiskers has helped over the time that they have been doing rescues, and the number is really awesome. It's very surprising how many animals they've been able to save. So let's talk about art and how art is cool and can do cool things for the world. So block printing is a type of printmaking. So printmaking is one of the more ancient forms of art because it allowed people to carve into a surface and then make basically a stamp, for lack of a better term. And what that does is it makes it so you can make repeat prints. However, it's different than, like, say, a copy machine or something like that, where it's a digital print, right? And it's a machine that's reproducing each image. So they're pretty much going to be perfect. Most machines don't have the ability to give minor nuance like the human hand can. So every time I print something, I'm inking the plate and I'm inking the block, so two surfaces, and then I'm transferring the image from the block to the paper. So there's three potential areas where minor nuance and the art of the human interacting with the materials can lead to differences. So even these two, they're slightly different. This one looks a little more polished, whereas this one looks more polished. This one looks a little more grainy. I didn't get the ink on the stamp covered as nicely, but that's why I love printmaking, because I could do 150 of these and they would all have their own character. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of a block. So a printing block, you can get one of these. Actually, yours will come like this, and magically you can draw on it. You can actually do a lot of photo transfers if you want to. I I am not an illustrator. It is not my art to draw things. In fact, every time I carve a block, I'm a little bit anxious because I don't feel like I have the skill of drawing. In fact, it's really nerve-wracking for me. So I have kind of learned to manipulate things in order to get an image that I am happy with. Now, I try really hard not to be a perfectionist, but I do, when I have an image in my head of how I want something to look, I'm a very visual person, so it's hard for me if that doesn't translate really well. So the first one I drew, you can kind of see, I took a pencil and I outlined the image. So actually I bought an image that I really liked because I just could not draw the image in my head. So I bought an image that was meant for reproduction from a small business actually on Etsy. And I loved the image so much. And I knew that I wanted to use it as a basis for this stamp. A cat in a sweater. What could be better than that? I have a cat and I can't put him in a sweater. I will murder mittens. So yeah, so that's why I did this, because it's a great way, it's a safe way to put a cat in a sweater. So my first one I drew and it looked awful, I thought. I basically just outlined the rough image that I wanted with a graphite pencil, and then I just pressed really hard and transferred the pencil image onto here, and that didn't work actually. So the next one, I trusted myself a little bit more to render the drawing, and that worked out actually. It wasn't perfect the first time, but once I got carving, it really turned out cool, and I was able to give him a really cool sweater with like a little heart in the center and a little collar. And his funny eyes look exactly like my cat's eyes. So yeah, it's a cat with antlers. So I wanted to add some color. There are very skilled block printing artists who are educated in printmaking techniques, and they are amazing. You can do multiple colors. You can carve multiple blocks that you can actually layer over the top. One of our artists, Summer, she has a two-step block that's got 2 layers to it. So you get an image with 2 different colors. And another artist, Izzy of Untidy Venus, she is an awesome artist, and she studied printmaking. So she knows all of the amazing block printing techniques. If you are interested in learning more of this, I would highly recommend taking a class with her, or maybe even scheduling like a one-on-one if you want to troubleshoot some of the problems that you're having with block printing. She is amazing. Another one of our artists who has some incredible block printing skills is Steve Stone. So he actually was part of a print exchange that is incredible, and he let me look through it one day. So a print exchange is where multiple artists all commit, like say there's 25, everybody commits to make a print, and every artist who's part of it gets to have one of those prints from everyone. And then you make a certain amount in a small number that can be sold for whatever, for the benefit of what you're doing. The cool thing is they usually all get numbered. So I have a couple prints from a print exchange, and it says what number was in the series, like, 3 of 100 or 2 of 15 or something like that. So it's really cool. It's a cool way to support really unique art. I'm not going to number the cards, but just know that every single one of these cards is going to be made by hand and pressed one at a time. So I don't have a fancy machine. I'm not lining up 50 of them and smashing them all at once. It's me. It's this hand and this hand, and that's all. So I wanted to incorporate some fun things, and I wanted to do watercolor because I don't want to do the multi-layer blocks, but I wanted to put color behind my image. So actually I'm going to use some well-loved watercolors, and I just got a little pot of water can, rather a recycled can, and I'm just going to do a quick wash with some red. And I'm just going to get my brush a little bit wet, and these are card blanks. So that is the fun thing about art, right? Is you're the artist. You get to choose. I wanted to make a circle that's slightly imperfect and doesn't even anywhere match the shape of the block. So you can do that. And I did it initially red and green, but it sort of came out to like a pink color, which is fine. So here's my first step. I'm just painting the kind of rough shape. Now, keep in mind when you do this, normally when you're doing printmaking, you would give yourself some time to let these dry. So I'm going to show you these kind of preparations, and then I'm actually going to print one on a blank card because they do have to dry. The printmaking ink alone has to dry. So I actually, the ones that I showed you, they have been pressed under a random stack of totes, also known as a printing press in my world. So that's how I press them, to just keep them flat, because watercolor adds water to the paper, which means that the paper is going to have some shape, because that's what paper does when it gets wet. Right. So you have to kind of wait. And I didn't do a very heavy application, but if I were to ink up my plate, we'll actually talk about the inking process. If I were to ink up my plate and print it right away, there's a really good chance it could smear. So you want to wait until that first layer of watercolor is very dry, unless you don't, and then see what happens. half of art is going, what would happen if I do that? It could be cool. It could actually be a really cool effect to explore. Maybe you have a cool design that would work really well with a blurred image of some sort. So this is actually an eco carve block. I just got these for the first time, and they're actually recycled rubber. So this is a more eco-friendly approach to a block. If you know me, you know that I really hate plastic. So for me, the criteria for using anything that's plastic is usually, can it be reused like over and over and over again, and like completely used until it's 100% exhausted, and can it be recycled when it's done? So those are criteria for me. So I love that this block is made from a recycled source to begin with, and it's more of a natural rubber. It didn't say that it was 100% natural rubber, so I don't think it's biodegradable, but we're getting better than just using plastic. So the company Speedball, they make a lot of really great printmaking tools, and they make this kit that comes with actually a block, a tool, which this is kind of cool. These little carving tips just fit inside the bottom of this little tool. So these are the tips. There's 3 that it comes with. And then you get a small sample of, now it is printmaking ink, but it's only good for paper. So just remember that the ink that the Speedball kit comes with is only good for paper. Now I do a lot of work with fabric. So I actually got a screen printing ink, and this screen printing ink can be used on paper or fabric, which is really cool. So you're going to need to carve your block, any design. And sometimes the hard part about carving a block is like you have to think backwards. So the first block I did was a pine cone, and it had like this kind of matrix design in it. And I actually got really confused by doing it. And the second block, I decided, well, why not put some words in it? So we have to think backwards too. Thinking back, doing anything with words as your first block is probably a little tricky. However, you're the artist, and if you want to go for it, you go for it. So you need a brayer. So this is also a Speedball brayer. It's actually really nice. It's a big brayer. So they come in a lot of different sizes. Mine still has green on it from some jelly printing that I was doing. So there's a variety of different inks too. I have another ink called Akua ink, and they are a professional lithograph ink. So it's only made for porous surfaces because it's a soy-based binder. It's not acrylic, and it takes a really long time to dry. So it has a really long open time. So you can actually ink a block with multiple colors and then print it, and it won't dry on your block. So it's kind of cool. So there's a lot of different inks to use. I've even seen people use acrylic paint. You would probably want to do a very, very heavy bodied acrylic paint because the Speedball ink, ooh, I haven't opened that for a while, obviously, is very thick. It's not like your average acrylic paint or like craft store paint, which is like very watery. So it is thick and tacky, and that is actually going to make it so we get all the details on our block. So you have a couple of different methods to ink up your block. I have a little glass sheet that I just wrapped some, I think it's Gorilla tape around the edges so I don't break it, because I will break things like really easily. It's real easy for me to break things. So I am going to take chopstick and actually put out a little bit of ink on my plate. You can use a spatula or a spoon, or maybe you have a palette, a paint palette. That would be nice. So you need a nice smooth surface to roll out your ink on. You can get a tile. Izzy found these really cool tiles from the Restore that are really big, but for this demo I just have a small piece because I'm just doing a small area. I kind of have things that are easy to pack into small areas because I don't have a terribly large area at home to work with. So I am just rolling my ink out, and it gets kind of a texture and a sound when it's correctly inked. So you don't want it to glob on. And usually for me, I like it to be it has like a velvety surface. My brayer's not working though, so let's just, there we go. You'll know it because you'll feel it, and it feels a little bit different. The first few times you do it, you'll kind of understand the texture that you're looking for and how that's going to impact the block being inked up. So it's a thin layer, there's no globs, it looks pretty smooth. I kind of like to roll it and roll it and roll it until it gets really nicely covered. And then you're going to ink your block. I'll see if I can switch this a little bit so you can kind of watch. So I left a border on mine. Sometimes you can carve all the way around your block and get it really smooth. Again, you're the artist, but I really liked the border. And I did a little poll on Instagram and everyone said they liked the border too. So the border is staying. So I'm inking two directions. So I'm going this way, and then I'm going to go this way. And again, you want to keep your brayer nice and steady. So when you do your print, you can flip your brayer over too. That's a little trick. It's got a built-in kind of rest on the back. Just make sure you don't put your hand in it. And I think this first one that I painted is going to be just fine. So there are tools to keep your lines going. You know, there's like fancy tools, but I don't have any of those. So I just guess. I actually like to flip my block over because I think from the stamping part of my brain, for me, it's how I can see it. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. And another thing is you probably want another tip I learned from Izzy, you can do a spoon. So you probably want a spoon or something that you can kind of burnish the bottom. And another thing that I had that was awesome is I have a clay rolling pin. It's acrylic rolling pin, and I actually use that. You can also use a regular rolling pin, which I have. I forgot this tiny mini rolling pin. Cute. So I'm just gonna transfer the image. There's fancy printing presses that you can get, and even some moderately priced ones. And that is first little run. So it's actually not very dark, and that's probably because typically you want to ink up your stamp 2 or 3 times before you get a good print. So I'm going to ink my little guy again. Sometimes your very first one, it's like it's just not gonna hold enough ink to give you a really nice print. So you have to ink it a few times. Nice and inked up. It also could have been that I didn't let it dry very good. So we're gonna try one on a recently painted card blank. So these little cards are going to be $5.95 a piece, or you'll be able to buy them in a 5-pack for $24. So hopefully that gives you some options to send them to all of your favorite cat people for the holidays. And I'm really excited to get these made and to help Whiskers out, because they're a great organization and they do a lot of good. All right. So you can see how much darker it is. So I think a combination was probably that the paper was wet, which the ink is not going to stick to. And then you usually have to ink it a couple times and most people do a test print, but I didn't do that. So we'll just count that one as the test print. So anyways, that is a little bit about printmaking, and it's really fun. You don't have to be an expert to try it. And how do you get good at anything? Practice. When people are like, it's talent. Nope, it's practice. How did you get that good? Practice, 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 and probably a dash of failure and a little bit of insanity too, because that's how we artists like to roll. A little bit of madness is great with art supplies. So anyways, I hope you have a good night. And if you have any questions about this process or where to get supplies, please hit me up. Ask questions in the comments. I'd love to get you started on your block printing if you want to try it. It's really fun. And like I said, if you want a class, you should definitely take a class with Izzy of Untidy Venus. She teaches those classes at the local Artisan Collective. And being in a class is such a great place to get all of your burning questions about how to do things right the first time in a class. So do that. All right, bye.